Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Inflation Reduction Act 1-year anniversary press briefing. My name is Nubia Enriquez, and I am the Communications Director for Chispa, Arizona. I would like to share some logistical information as to how the briefing will go. First, we will have Chispa, Arizona Executive Director Vianey Olivarria, who will deliver welcoming remarks. After that, our guests will deliver their remarks, and once they are all done, we will open it up for a live Q&A at the end of the briefing. Once the event is over, we will send a recording of the briefing to everybody that is on our press list. I am going to give us 30 seconds just to make sure something logistically is happening, and Vianey, I will give you your cue. Give me 15 to 30 seconds. Thank you, Vianey. Go ahead.
Thank you, Nubia. Hi, everybody. Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vianey Olivarria. I am the Executive Director of Chispa, Arizona. Here at Chispa, we organize within the Latinx communities to grow political power and civic engagement for environmental justice in our state. Knowing that our communities are at the front line of the climate crisis, we advocate for us to have access to clean air and water, protection from extreme heat, access to public lands, and the security of knowing that our planet can sustain us today and for future generations. We are thrilled to welcome members of the press to hear how funding from the Inflation Reduction Act is impacting our communities 1 year after it was signed into law. And we thank Congressman Raúl Grijalva, City of Tucson Mayor Regina Romero, Arizona Representative Mariana Sandoval, and Energy Policy Advisor Blaise Caudill for joining us today. And I'll give my remarks in Spanish. Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Vianey Olivarria, soy la directora de Chispa, Arizona. Aquí en Chispa estamos organizando dentro de nuestras comunidades latinas para aumentar nuestro poder político y compromiso cívico hacia la justicia ambiental en Arizona. Sabiendo que nuestras comunidades son las más afectadas por la crisis climática, abogamos por tener acceso al aire y al agua limpia, a la protección del calor extremo, acceso a las tierras públicas y la seguridad de saber que nuestro planeta nos puede sustentar ahora y en futuras generaciones. Estamos muy emocionados de darle la bienvenida a los medios de comunicación para escuchar cómo los fondos provenientes de la Ley de Reducción de la Inflación están teniendo un impacto positivo en nuestras comunidades a 1 año de haberse firmado. También agradecemos al Congresista Raúl Grijalva, a la Alcaldesa de la ciudad de Tucson, Regina Romero, a la Representante Estatal Mariana Sandoval y al Asesor de Política de Energía, Blaise Caudill, por acompañarnos hoy. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Vianey. And now I would like to introduce Energy Policy Advisor to Governor Katie Hobbs, Blaise Caudill.
Good morning and happy Inflation Reduction Grant anniversary. I want to also extend a special hello and welcome to Mayor Romero, Congressman Grijalva, and Representative Sandoval. My name is Blaise Caudill, and I have the honor of serving as the Governor's Energy Policy Advisor. I want to first express my gratitude to Chispa for inviting the Governor and the Office of Resiliency to the celebration this morning. On behalf of the Governor, I want to share her appreciation for the work of so many organizations like Chispa who contributed to the advocacy that led to the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act represents a historic investment in green energy infrastructure, providing countless jobs that really are already transforming our economy. When I was younger, I remember playing outside in the summers. We would go hiking and adventuring around Tucson and in southern Arizona. Yes, it was hot, but it wasn't as life-threatening as the heat we experience today. Just last month, Communities across the state experienced the hottest month on record, with many communities experiencing over 30 days at temperatures above 110 degrees. And although I wish we could think this is a one-time heat wave, we know that we can expect summers to continue to be hotter and drier due to climate change. For this reason, Governor Hobb has prioritized actions that will help the state to plan and respond to future heat waves. Taking full advantage of the funds available to the state through the Inflation Reduction Act is key to that work. Our office is excited to continue partnering with community groups like Chispa to ensure that the funds available to states directly benefit families and Arizonans who need it the most and who are at the front lines of facing the climate crisis. Thank you again for having me today at the celebration, and I cannot wait to continue our partnership as we bring money into families and into Arizona who need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Blaise. And now I would like to introduce City of Tucson Mayor Regina Romero.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Happy one-year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act. I, too, would like to thank the governor's office, Blaise, for representing Governor Hobb here in this call, Representative Mariana Sandoval for doing her diligent work at the state legislature, and of course, our very own Congressman Raúl Grijalva. You know, you've heard a little bit of from our speakers what a crisis it is in terms of our climate and what is happening throughout the world. But here in Arizona, we feel it firsthand, and we have been feeling it tangibly for at least 22 years. We are living through 22 years of drought, and this drought is causing uncertainty for the livability of our cities, in cities like Tucson, Arizona, where we depend. Every city in the Southwest depends on the Colorado River, and there is great uncertainty. And the other thing that we're experiencing firsthand is heat. Heat is one of the deadliest health hazards, and in Arizona, we're feeling it. We are seeing deaths because of heat. More than 22% of the total workforce in Arizona work outside. And we are seeing heat exhaustion, heat illnesses, not just in outside workers, but also children and seniors. And the deaths that we're experiencing this summer are toppling more than 100. And so Phoenix and the city of Tucson are the 2nd and 7th fastest warming cities in America. And here in Tucson, Arizona, we declared a climate emergency back in September of 2020. We pledged, and I pledged as the mayor, that we would push bold policies to make sure that we fought this climate crisis, but also we pledged to create a climate resilient city in the city of Tucson. In 14 months, we passed a climate action plan that is really bold and aggressive. And thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act and other grants that President Biden and the Biden administration have pushed forth, and our congressional delegation, like Congressman Grijalva, voting for it, it is helping cities like Tucson, Arizona, take clear and quick action based on these funds that are available to cities that never before we had seen to make sure that we are working on climate resiliency on our end. One of the examples that I can talk about where the city of Tucson really was the benefactor of the Inflation Reduction Act is the $44 million that the city of Tucson received for the Lower Colorado River Basin System Conservation and Efficiency Program. It is IRA funded, and the city of Tucson took advantage of conservation efforts by returning thousands of acre feet. It's going to be 125,000 acre feet by 2025 that we return to Lake Mead. We are applying for additional tranche from the IRA to put additional acre feet of water back into the Colorado River. And we're also applying for a $7 million grant under the Urban and Community Forestry Program for a Million Trees Initiative. As we all know, and Chispa knows this very well, part of climate action is reducing greenhouse gases. We received actually as a total of $48 million to switch over our transit buses to 100% low to no emission, and we're going to reach that goal by 2025. And then the $7 million we're applying for is to use nature-based solutions to plant trees within the city of Tucson. We're doing it with an equity lens, where the lowest income areas have the highest heat island effect in the city. We have an equity map that we are focusing on, and we're using green stormwater infrastructure to water those native drought tolerant trees. And so planting trees is a nature-based solution to gobbling up greenhouse gases. It beautifies neighborhoods and is helpful and healthy for our health. So the front line of climate change are BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, our children, our seniors, and our low-income communities. We've got to tackle that inequity, and the goals that we have here in the city of Tucson are being funded thanks to the Biden-Harris administration and our congressional delegation, like Congressman Grijalva, who voted for this effort and this historic investment in climate action and climate resiliency.
Thank you, Mayor Romero. That was really great information. Now I would like to introduce Arizona Representative for Legislative District 23, Mariana Sandoval.
Good morning, buenos dias. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this morning. Thank you for the invite, Chispa. Thank you to all the colegas here present, and I will be delivering my remarks en español. Mi nombre es Mariana Sandoval y represento el Distrito Legislativo 23. Y comienza en la ciudad de Goodyear, justo sur de la McDowell y Perryville en Dysart, y abarca 4 condados, Maricopa, Yuma, Pima y Pinal. Incluye también partes de la ciudad de Buckeye, Welton, Yuma, Tucson y las ciudades de Gila Bend, San Luis, Somerton, Ajo y toda la nación Tohono-O'odham. Ha pasado un año desde la aprobación de la Ley de Reducción de Inflación y hemos presenciado cómo nuestras comunidades están siendo impactadas por la aprobación de esta legislación. La Ley de Reducción de Inflación está impulsando la economía de Arizona, posicionándola como una potencia de fabricación solar y vehículos eléctricos. Este tipo de inversión en energía limpia es importante por varias razones. Primero, por el beneficio ambiental que tendrá en comunidades de color, comunidades de bajos ingresos y comunidades indígenas, como la Mayor acaba de mencionar. El cambio climático tiende a impactar negativamente a comunidades de color. Las consecuencias del cambio climático nos afectan a nosotros desproporcionadamente. Los latinos tienen una probabilidad más alta de vivir en comunidades que perderán horas de trabajo debido al calor intenso. También en vivir en áreas calurosas de las ciudades y más probabilidades que cualquier otra población en nuestras comunidades. Desafortunadamente, acabamos de presenciar esto el 20 de julio, cuando colapsó Dario Mendoza en los campos de agricultura en Yuma, Arizona. Eran antes de las 10 de la mañana. Dario solamente tenía 26 años y deja atrás a su pareja y dos niños. Tuvimos temperaturas récord en julio. No hubo un día al mes de julio que las temperaturas estuvieran por debajo de los 110 grados. Necesitamos completar la transición de la energía limpia y debemos hacerlo de la manera más rápida y equitativa y de una forma que priorice la justicia ambiental. Segundamente, esta inversión ha creado más de 12,720 empleos de energía limpia en Arizona y son trabajos bien pagados que en muchas ocasiones no requieren un título universitario. Los salarios por hora para estos empleos de energía limpia superan los promedios nacionales del 8 a 19% y las barreras educativas son menores en los trabajos de energía limpia. La generación de energía solar hoy emplea a más trabajadores latinos que la generación de energía de combustibles fósiles. Solo los puestos de instaladores solares, de los cuales un tercio ya están ocupados por los trabajadores latinos, son uno de los trabajos de más rápido crecimiento en el país. Arizona tiene 13 nuevos proyectos nuevos de energía limpia, ocupando el 6º lugar en la nación, y varios de estos proyectos están en las ciudades de mi distrito, en Buckeye, Tucson, Yuma y Goodyear. Esta legislación continúa acelerando el auge de los empleos de energía limpia, también reduce los costos de energía para familias y se hacen inversiones en comunidades desfavorecidas. Y también reducirá la contaminación climática en todo el estado. Desde el primer día, el presidente Biden dejó en claro que el crecimiento económico y laboral creado por la Ley de Reducción de Inflación debía ser justo e incluir niveles históricos de inversiones en comunidades desatendidas, desproporcionadamente afectadas por la contaminación. En este aniversario de un año, agradecemos a la administración del presidente Biden y todos nuestros congresistas estatales, federales, como el representante Grijalva, por su apoyo en la aprobación de la Ley de Reducción de Inflación, que tendrá un impacto ambiental y económico muy significante en Arizona y en todo el país. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much, Representative Sandoval, y muchísimas gracias por haber dado su testimonio en español. Se lo agradecemos mucho. Now, it is my honor to introduce our environmental justice champion, Congressman Raúl Grijalva.
Thank you very much. And let me thank Chispa for all you've done to assure that the discussion about climate, the discussion about resources is equitable, that access is equitable, that the issues of clean air, clean water are not left behind in some communities and not attended to. And that, and I think your advocacy has been instrumental, and I want to thank the organization and all the individuals involved. Thank you very much. To my dear friend, the mayor, thank you. Her leadership in the city of Tucson in raising the profile and making the issue of responding to the climate crisis a primary policy and resource issue has been very important, and it's set a very important tone not only for Tucson but in other parts of the country and hopefully in other parts of the state. And to the representative, thank you very much for your comments and for your leadership. I just want to do, we're celebrating an anniversary of Inflation Reduction Act, the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act as well, and putting in the background the issue of coming through the pandemic and the relief and recovery that was necessary for all of us to get through that horrible crisis. And then you look at to what we need to do going forward, and it's tied together, as the mayor said. The issue of responding to the climate crisis, which is real, which is factual, which is empirical, is a necessity, and everything is tied and weaved to that issue. The economy, issues of equity and inequality, our public health is tied to that, and in general, how we respond to the future. The water issue in Arizona is not going to go away magically. We can't wait and see if it goes away. It is something that needs to be responded to. the climate crisis and the natural catastrophes we're seeing across the country, including Arizona, here being the intense heat and the safety and the health issues that it is rising all over the state, needs to be responded to. And the IRA, as an example, was beginning to make a response to the very critical issue of how do we transition to the future? How do we transition during this climate crisis to a renewable, safe, clean air, water, and protections for all communities and none being left behind? That is the task ahead. And the IRA is that transition point, an enormous first and historic step by the Biden administration. And now we face kind of a decision-making role position here nationally, and it affects the state. Of all the appropriations bills, the budgets that the Republican House of Representatives has put together and passed out of committee, nearly half of the investments in the transition and climate response in the IRA are eliminated and cut back. And that goes into every other area that we're talking about. And so while they're happy to go and cut the ribbons when a new energy project opens up in their district, 17 times so far, every Republican in the state of Arizona has voted to begin to undo the IRA, to gut it, to cut it, billions of dollars, $103 billion in this last phase, and to top that off, continue to say that the only way for us to be energy efficient is to continue to drill and extract gas and oil. The gas and oil companies this last year made $419 billion of profit. $219 billion of that went directly to their shareholders and bonuses for the executives, particularly their CEO. We're talking Exxon, Mobil, BP, all the major companies. So to say that industry is hurting is a lie. To say that we need to cut back on the IRA is political posturing at its worst. I think that the fight ahead is to retain and maintain the effort that's ongoing. As the mayor said, and as the representative said, we are making progress. People are working, jobs are being created, and the transition to a cleaner, healthier environment is moving in that direction. And to now, all of a sudden, for the sake of an industry, to stop this progress, I think is wrong. And so there's work ahead. There's work ahead. And this anniversary marks an achievement, but it also marks a renewal of the fact that we cannot stop what we're doing for political reasons, where we put politics over people, and for the insane riders that are being put on bills having to do with women's reproduction rights, cuts to education, LGBTQ, and the list goes on, putting on riders to poison these bills and then threaten to shut down the government if they don't get their way. We already went through the debt ceiling, hostage taking, and ransom by the Republicans in the House, and I didn't vote for it, I'll be honest with you, because there was no binding agreement that they were going to keep their word, and I was right. Now they're coming back through the appropriation process to do what they couldn't do with the debt ceiling and to threaten to shut down the government. And who gets hurt the worst? Frontline communities. Who gets hurt the worst? The people with the least. Who gets hurt the worst? The people that need the opportunity and the doors open for them. Who get hurt the worst? Those men and women that are working in jobs that they didn't have in the clean energy sector just a year ago. 12,000, 13,000 in Arizona. So yes, this is a monumental achievement, and we have a monumental effort that we must undertake to make sure that the gains we've made are not taken back, and that the cuts that are being proposed by the Republicans, every one of them in the state of Arizona, in the House of Representatives, every one of them, nobody can hide from this, have voted to make those cuts. And I think that's the fight ahead when we get back in September. But for Chispa and for the efforts that's ongoing in Arizona, And for, I believe, what 74% of Latinos in this state want a response to climate. They know it's real, and they want us to respond to it. That's the mandate, and that's the mandate Chispa follows, and my elected colleagues today follow, and I join with them on that. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Congressman Grijalva, and thank you for keeping it real as always. And once again, thank you also to Blaise, Caudill, Mayor Romero, and Representative Sandoval for being here today and sharing such important information. Now we will begin our question and answer session. For our media friends, please put your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And when you do that, please make sure you indicate who your question is for. I will be reading the questions and then queuing the person that should be answering them. So once again, please put your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. I don't see any questions as of now.
We did a really good job. Nobody has questions.
We do have, they're coming in. Okay, first we have Jesús González. ¿Cómo nuestra comunidad puede acceder a los servicios? How can our community access the services and benefits of the IRA?
Well, if you'd like, I can answer that. Local governments, like city councils, are those closest to the people. We get the calls every day, mayor and council, in terms of the needs of the community, everything from roads to their trash to, it's very, local government, like city government, really affects people firsthand. So I would say that some of the work that we're doing here in the city of Tucson is that we're providing cooling centers for our community. And we are working with Trees for Tucson and neighborhood associations in low-income areas of our city to plant trees. Those are the areas that feel the highest heat island effect. And so I would say to the reporters that people should call their council member or mayors. En español, estaba comentando que los gobiernos locales, como las ciudades, son los gobiernos que son más cercas de la gente, que los residentes nos pueden hablar a la oficina del alcalde o de los regidores y con cualquier pregunta. Entonces, lo que recomendaría, por ejemplo, aquí en Tucson estamos proviendo lugares como las bibliotecas y áreas de recreación, los centros para los adultos mayores. Son lugares donde puede ir la gente si no tiene aire acondicionado, a pasar todo el día. Hay agua y comida muchas veces en nuestros centros. Y la mejor manera de buscar estas oportunidades son con las oficinas de sus regidores o sus alcaldes.
Thank you, Mayor Romero, for providing that answer. So I just want to tell Alyssa that I don't think her question is complete, so I will wait for that question. But then we have Tony Davis to Blaise Caudill. Can you please tell us what grants you intend to apply for in the near future to bring in more IRA money into the state? How much money and what programs?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. So we are focusing on a few different programs that are directly sponsored by the IRA. One of the most exciting programs, I think they're all really exciting to be honest, but one of the more exciting ones that we're really excited about getting onto the ground and really beginning the community engagement part of the grant is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. So the CPRG grant is a planning grant that we've already been awarded. That's $3 million that we have for planning purposes to do a priority climate action plan, but it's really focused on making sure that we're reducing pollutants in the air And so what that really looks like is us being able to partner with the Maricopa Association of Governments, so MAG, as well as Pima County, who received $1 million each to do a similar planning, to do a statewide plan that proposes projects for additional $4.7 billion in implementation money. So those projects can look like things like fleet electrification, for example, or things that help to improve air quality throughout the state. So we're really excited about that $3 million, and then potentially the pot of money that is a total at $4.7 billion. Additionally, and this will be really exciting and really matches what the governor's focused on, is insofar as making sure that we are providing funding and we're providing assistance to families who need it the most. So the Homes and HERA rebate programs, which are energy efficiency and electrification rebates that are available specifically for low-income households, as well as communities who have been historically disadvantaged and underserved. So those rebates go to help fund energy efficiency projects in homes. And so there's 2 different pots technically, and each is $76 million of funding. So almost $150 million, or just a little over $150 million of rebates for energy efficiency projects that we'll be bringing down directly to families in the state of Arizona. So we're really excited about those. That application, we just finished applying for our early admin side of that. So we'll be hiring some additional staffers to be able to manage the program and making sure that those rebates are going to families who need it the most. We're expecting to be able to launch those rebates as soon as possible, most likely in early 2024.
Thank you very much, Blaise. Our next question is for Mayor Romero. She talked about some of the things that have been done with grants that Tucson received, like invest in the new buses. What else is being done with the funding, and how much has Tucson received so far?
So the Inflation Reduction Act benefits both public and private. So for example, here in Tucson, we are happy that the Inflation Reduction Act is investing in American Battery Factory, and that helped American Battery Factory expand. That investment from the Inflation Reduction Act was $1.2 billion to build a lithium battery gigafactory here in the city of Tucson. That project is slated to create more than 1,000 high-wage green jobs of the future. That's the private investment. The public investment from the Inflation Reduction Act directly to the city of Tucson is really a water security investment. And in order to be able to thrive as a sustainable desert city, we need water. And so since the city of Tucson and our residents have had a conservation ethic in terms of water, we took advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bureau of Reclamation offering cities and towns that use the Colorado River to put back water into Lake Mead. Like I said, we're putting back 125,000 acre feet by 2025. And the Bureau of Reclamation is paying the city of Tucson for putting that water back into Lake Mead. That's $44 million over the next 3 years for our near-term efforts to protect Lake Mead. That money is going to be invested into system conservation efforts and making sure that we continue really cutting the use of Colorado River water in the city of Tucson. So the other one that we are applying for is a $7 million grant under the Urban and Community Forestry Program of the IRA, and that is going to be used for nature-based solutions in terms of creating and planting more trees in our city, as well as other action items. We also advocated for Pima County, in partnership with Pima County, applying for an EPA planning grant to reduce carbon reduction efforts along with Pima County. And Pima County is leading on that grant, and that's a $1 million planning grant. Besides the IRA funds that we have been receiving from the Biden-Harris administration, we have received millions and millions of dollars, both in American Rescue Plan dollars and other funds like the Federal Transit Administration. Like I said, more than $48 million to change out our transit fleet to zero to no emission fleets. And we're going to be able to do that by 2025.
Thank you, Mayor Romero.
Thank you for the
next question. The next question is for Representative Sandoval and Congressman Grijalva. Representative Sandoval mentioned farm worker Mario Mendoza's death in Yuma in July. The same month, Congressman Grijalva and other congressional members reintroduced a piece of legislation to instate OSHA protections for farm workers. Can IRA funding help prevent deaths like Mr. Mendoza's, or are these regulations that need to be passed by Congress?
Well, as far as it's Dario, not Mario. So as far as the state goes, the state of Arizona doesn't have heat protections in the law. So I am actively working with stakeholders to draft legislation based on a piece of legislation that was dropped by former leader Cano to ensure that we have heat protections in our state. And so we're working on that. I'm meeting with stakeholders. I met with the director of ADOSH. And so I hope to drop that bill in January. And Congressman Grijalva can take the OSHA part of that.
Yeah, I think in response to the question, knowing that, suspecting that it would be very difficult to get through the House of Representatives a piece of legislation that would mandate the protection of farm workers and people that work outside or work in heat-stressed areas, say warehouses, etc. The 22% that was mentioned that work outside in the heat. We have urged and gotten good response from the Biden administration in terms of enforcement activities in the part of OSHA, number one. Number two, issuing guidelines in terms of heat protection and beginning to provide resources for that effort. But at the end of the day, it's OSHA and their ability, because it would to enforce those issues. I get it's the irony is that all these farm workers were praised as essential workers that kept everybody alive during the pandemic by continuing to work. And all those people that worked outside during the pandemic and took the risk. And it's kind of ironic that at this juncture, with this heat stress that we're seeing in Arizona and other parts of the Southwest, that enforcement has to be a key issue. And if we can't get legislation, it'll be, I think, the Biden administration that'll have to carry the burden of making sure through executive action that those protections are extended.
I did forget to mention that the governor has also indicated to the director of ADOSH there's a program that she instituted to increase those inspections and make sure that people are getting water, rest, and shade. And she has also declared a heat emergency, which should also help bring funding for this very thing in our state.
I just want to mention briefly, and thank you, Representative Sandoval, for mentioning that. I was also going to mention it just now as well, but the governor with ADOSH was able to implement this program for additional surveillance and just to be able to ensure that we are taking care of frontline workers and taking care of workers as it's so hot. So we're very thankful for the partnership with ADOSH and with industry to be able to make sure that we're really helping individuals in months and in experiencing such intense heat.
Thank you all for helping to answer that question. Our next question is, in Spanish, and I will translate it to English. Javier Arce from La Voz, Arizona says, se habla y se celebra de una reducción de la inflación en cuanto a energía limpia y programas de ayuda, pero la inflación que la gente ve todos los días es cuando va a los mercados, cuando compra gasolina. ¿Cuándo podrán los arizonenses palpar un alivio en reducción de la inflación en ese aspecto? So we talk about celebrating inflation in terms of clean energy and help programs, but the inflation that our communities see is seen when they go to the gas pump or when they go to buy groceries. So when will Arizonans see relief when it comes to inflation in these aspects? And anyone in our from our speakers can answer that.
Al principio tenemos que reconocer que en los últimos 11 meses la inflación ha bajado cada mes. Y no al punto donde todos estamos satisfechos, obviamente, pero controlar ese aspecto de la economía ha sido un esfuerzo importante de la Biden administration. Además de eso, parte del resultado es que tiene que invertir en empleo, en gente, en programas que van de beneficio al pueblo en general. Y eso lo digo porque el empleo sigue subiendo, desempleo sigue reduciendo en este país, pero todavía sigue la cuestión de la inflación. Pero como les digo, ha sido un proceso después de la pandemia de 11 meses, rebajando poco a poco ese elemento de la economía. Pero no estamos en la crisis económica que muchos quieren decir que estamos. Estamos sosteniendo, y en ese sostenimiento estamos invirtiendo también a la vez en programas que van al fin del día, no solamente bajar la inflación, pero crear ese empleo que va a ser más justo y un ingreso más alto.
Thank you very much. We have two more questions. Alyssa says, last question for Mayor Romero. Part of the IRA funding was slated to go to community groups in Tucson to carry out hyperlocal projects. Has that money been distributed? And if so, how much and where? Also, is any IRA money being put toward water infrastructure projects in Tucson and Pima County, such as PFA's cleanup?
Thank you for that question. It's a really important question. Like I said, we did receive $44 million from the Bureau of Reclamation from the IRA, and we are putting that money to work in furthering system conservation in terms of water. And part of it is going to remediate PFAS. As I've usually said, the city of Tucson and Tucson water customers did not cause PFAS. And so we are working with Congressman Grijalva and Senators Kelly and Sinema to bring those that caused PFAS to go into our aquifer to help us remediate and clean it. And while we do that, we are in partnership with the state of Arizona. The Governor Hobbs slated $25 million for PFAS remediation in the city of Tucson. It is not specific IRA. We are applying for those funds because IRA is new. It's 1 year old today. The notice of funding didn't become available until the last 6 months. So we are looking fast and furiously in the city of Tucson to see if we can continue applying for PFAS remediation. But we are using both federal funds from either member-directed funds to remediate PFAS or state funds, $25 million to create a cleanup plant in the city of Tucson, and then some of the IRA money from the Bureau of Reclamation for our water system is going to help prevent the spread of PFAS into our north wells, which were being contaminated as well. So it is a huge effort, but there is both City of Tucson money remediating PFAS, State of Arizona, and then we're going aggressively after IRA funds and other federal funds to remediate PFAS in Tucson. Like I said, we've been using American Rescue Plan dollars to make transformative investments in our community and going aggressively after IRA funds now that the notice of funding availability are open.
Thank you very much. And don't go just yet, Mayor Romero. A follow-up about the 44 million. The question is that 44 million the entirety of what has been allocated to Tucson so far from the IRA, and what is planned for the 44 million? You talked briefly about that in your last answer.
It is Inflation Reduction funds put towards drought remediation and system conservation in the Colorado River. The City of Tucson had to apply for it and return water to Lake Mead to receive the funds. We had a signing ceremony with the BOR about 2 months ago, and the logistics and details of how we're going to invest the funds are still being put together by our Tucson Water Department. But it will continue system conservation within the City of Tucson and Tucson Water Service area, and will help protect people from the continued spread of PFAS and PFAS remediation through the TARP system, and continuing to make sure that we're creating the cleaning systems within the City of Tucson to be able to remove PFAS from our water, as well as TCE and 1,4-dioxane. So if you'd like, and the reporter would like to, I can connect them to the Tucson Water Department so that they can get a specific explanation. But what I can tell you is that Mayor and Council have not voted on how those $44 million will be used. There is a draft and a suggestion coming from Tucson Water for Mayor and Council to make that decision pretty soon here.
Thank you very much. And it doesn't seem like we have more questions. So once again, thank you very much to our elected officials, and thank you, Caudill, for being here. We are so grateful that we're able to be here and provide this very important information for our media outlets, who will in turn, take it to our communities, because it's so important for our communities to know what is happening with IRA funding. Thank you to the media outlets that joined us today as well. Like I mentioned before, this is being recorded, so at the end of the briefing, we will be sending this over to everyone that registered for it. So please be on the lookout for that pretty soon here. Once again, thank you very much. This concludes our IRA one year anniversary press briefing.
Thank you, Chispa.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And Yuma County Supervisor sends her greetings to Mayor Romero and Congressman Grijalva.
Thank you.
I'm in San Luis right now.
Likewise, abrazos over there. And thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Representative Sandoval.
Cuídense.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.